It's March 13th, 2023, and I'm bored in my high school health class. And what else is a queer teen supposed to do but think about yaoi? Now, I wasn't in any fandoms at the time, and it's not like I could just read stuff about my OCs, nor did I feel like writing about them. Also, I was obsessed with moths. So, the Mothin was born, based on traditional fantasy fairies with a heavy moth influence. Hello, my creatures and critters, I'm Mercury, and that's right, all of my previous creature series and my current live streams and my webcomic, by the way, that's right, for the 3rd anniversary of Phantasticus, I have a webcomic releasing today. In the title card, as well as in the description, there will be a short giving more information about the comic, as well as a link to the actual comic itself, and I hope to see you there after you watch this video. Anyway, as I was saying, everything I have ever made for Phantasticus, therefore almost everything I've ever made, are merely extensions of a moth yaoi. I think that really lets you into what kind of mental illnesses I have. But that's why, and also in celebration of the 3rd year anniversary, I am making not 1, not 3, but 5 Mothin characters. Originally, I was going to do 10. In fact, I have all 10 drawn and scripted, but the video is going to be too long, so I will be breaking it up into 2 different videos. With that said, all the Mothins that I do draw are all going to be based off real moths, so you'll get some information about these real-life moths that you can see, as well as the characters that I make and some Mothin lore sprinkled into the mix. Now, I may have fooled you a little bit. My favorite moth isn't just a moth, it is actually a moth hybrid of the Spanish Luna moth and the Chinese moon moth specifically. Now, Gracia Isabella, or the Spanish Luna moth, was first recorded in 1849 in the pine forests of Spain and the French Alps, and is one of many silk moths out in the world. However, the Spanish Luna moth is actually very rare and hard to find. It's actually considered a protected species of moth. Now, as for the Chinese moon moth, or Attacus dubonardi, it was first recorded in 1862, and it is native to China. Now, the Spanish Luna moth is already a rare species, not to mention the fact that these moths live in different continents, which makes this hybrid a very, very rare one. In fact, the hybrid is often found as a part of crossbreeding experiments done by scientists, but this hybrid has been seen to occur in the wild, which is probably the most fascinating part to me. As for the Mothin, I decided to make him male because the male Chinese moon moths are the ones with this pink color that I really like. Now, I am using a base that I made for this, but I didn't want all my Mothins to be like copy and paste besides color and clothing. So I decided to mess with his antennae, like making his rami longer, as well as damaging the one. Now, as a character, I wanted to make this first Mothin a student at Lunadale Academy, a university that, while founded by Mothin, hosts a wide range of species. In fact, our little Mothin here is studying cytotoxicology, which is the study of poisonous plants. He's lived in these heavy forested woods all of his life, and he has a knack for getting himself into trouble. Due to Mothin's poison immunity, he would accidentally find himself poisoning his non-Mothin's friends by accidents, doing things like giving them a toxic flower, or even touching them after touching toxic flowers without knowing. And while he didn't try to kill anyone, nor did he accidentally kill anyone, that is where he started learning about poisonous plants and their effects on people so that he doesn't actually end up killing anyone. And he formed a really great interest into it, which is why he's studying it now. Now, fun little fact about the Mothins, I like to name them off of flora, whether it's names that are associated with like a flower, or a tree, or even the genus of these things, or just like the actual plant. I'll say this because you viewers will get a chance to name all these moths, and the winners will be able to be posted in the next part of this video. And another reason why I say this is because of aforementioned mental illnesses. Names that fit the canon will definitely sway me. However, that's why I also recommend that you submit your name with a reasoning. Pretty much, I think he should be named this because of this, because it will increase your chances. because I always think about a reason for everything, and I may think of something that is less cool or fun than what you have in mind. But with that said, on to... This next moth was suggested in my Discord server and is Acronica lepronara, or the Miller moth. Miller moths are found all throughout Europe besides the southeast, and are also found in North Africa. It was first recorded in 1758 and is a type of owlet moth. Now, the most interesting thing I found about them is that Miller moths found in cities tend to be darker in color, while those near small towns or just in forested areas are nearly white. That's why I decided to make this next moth then a nearly completely white moth, as she is a bowman for a small village. She grew up in this small northern town in large open fields that Heathland is known to have. Also, living by a spring allowed for purple moorgrass to grow tall, which made the area a perfect hunting ground for cockatrice. After her mother's life was taken away by one of these dragons, she took up archery, wanting nothing but to protect her little village. Of course, I had to give her some armor to protect those vital organs, and the blindfold, as you may suspect, is to help negate the cockatrice's deadly stare. I'm sure you get the basic idea of her story already, and of course I had to give her some battle scars from fighting these bird dragons. But those scars are another story for another day. For now, I do have a story for you today, and I would like to give you some more information about my mothins. It's no creature sheet video, but again, I thought it would be fun. Now, mothins, as I mentioned earlier, are fairy creatures with moth-like traits. The moth-like traits specifically emphasize in their wings, like how they're cloth-like, slightly transparent, and also a little powdery. The mothins, of course, have the 4 arms and 2 legs, matching the 6 limbs that insects have. They've got their antennae, and they're also pretty short compared to humans, usually ranging near 1 foot to 2 feet tall, but can get up to 4 feet tall. Or for the non-Americans, around 0.3 meters to 1.2 meters. There is some sexual dimorphism, which is why, if you've been paying attention, you'll see that the 2 different templates I used for these ones are actually a little different. The females are typically larger inside, while males have larger antennae with larger rami as well as longer tails. By the way, tails are not these things, those are an abdomen. Tails on moths, as well as butterflies, are actually a part of their wings. At the end of the hind wing right here, on some species, it's longer. The longer parts are called tails. Now, on some moths, these are really extreme. Sometimes they don't exist. On all mothins, it's noticeable, but it never gets to comet moths. Females are also duller in color, males are fluffier, and this is again me giving them based on traits on a few moths, and it's not something all moths have. With that said, I think we should move on to the next character. So I did mention earlier that some of these moths are suggested. Well, this person suggested 2 moths that have nothing to do with each other. The first one is the African moon moth, the second is the white satin moth. Now, one of them is a silk moth, the other isn't. But they're all gonna be a mothin, so I decided to take the opportunity to make another hybrid. Now, the African moon moth, or Argima mimose, was first recorded in 1847 and is native to eastern and southern Africa. It's one of the many moths that don't have males, meaning it lives until it starves to death. Now, the white satin moth, or Lucuma silicus, was first recorded in 1758. It was found all over Europe, Asia, even going all the way to Japan, and it was introduced in North America in 1920s. And now, as I already mentioned, this hybrid is not one that exists in real life, but it did give me a fun idea. Since I'm making up this figurative hybrid already, why not pick the female African moon moth and the male white satin moth to, combine them? So I did, and now we have an intersex mothin that is duller in color, has the smaller tails, but is smaller and fluffier. Now, there is something else special about this mothin. Now, how I usually go about writing these videos is I write down a basic script and a story, and then I reference that story to then draw the characters. It helps me design them better. But for this one, I just kind of went into the drawing because I had no idea for this character besides the fact that I wanted her to be able to sew. So I'll just dive into it and make a scene Mothin. They sew up his own clothes with colorful patches and has a little plush of a Mothman-like creature in her skirt. He's a real sweetheart who grew up in Mothdale. However, she did not make it into Lunadale Academy. However, he has found work being a freelance seamstress and often makes costumes for local theater groups. They do participate in theater themselves as well, but she hasn't gotten a lead role yet. Not to blame them or anything, especially if you have got a good sleep schedule for a Mothin. It's hard to get into these plays as there's a lot more of them going on during the day rather than the night, as Lunadale Academy has accepted more and more non-Mothin students. A little fun fact about Lunadale Academy is that it used to be Mothin only. In other words, the only students were also other Mothins. However, there's been a lot of changes since then. As you can already guess, Mothins are nocturnals. While they can be awake during the day, as humans can be awake at night, they are much more inclined to be awake during the night. Also, another little fun fact about this characters and all Mothins is that they can produce something similar to silk. Mothins were definitely most heavily based on silk moths, but they still technically aren't silk moths. Rather, they are of Fae ancestry. They just also happen to be able to spin thread similar to silk, meaning that this little Mothin, as well as most other Mothins, sew clothes with thread that they make themselves. With that said, I think it is about time we move on to the last moth that was suggested to me is...
Be not afraid.
What?
I said be not afraid.
This is Petriophis pentadactyla, or the white plume moth. And these moths look weird as hell. It was first recorded in 1756 and is found in Europe and North Africa. Now, although it looks like it has 10 wings, at first it only has the standard 4. The white 2 plumes comprise the forewing, and the bottom 3 form the hind wing. These moths are also entirely white. And I will say that when I first saw this moth, I'm like, that looks more like a butterfly than it does a moth, but I can confirm it is a moth. However, they still look weird as hell, so I decided it would be best to go out of my way to make major changes to her design, but I think her story says it better than I could. Alone in the woods lay a demon in white. They say that they live in the upper of the dark woods, and people who leave her forest are left shivering in terror. Nothing but a white blur clouding their minds. Some of what they say is true. The dark forest is hard to navigate and even harder to find food when lost. From the mushrooms to berries and even animals, nearly everything is toxic for most things to consume. So when a neuropathic doctor and poison maker comes to help you after you've accidentally eaten such dangerous but seemingly harmless plants, the hallucinogenic effects that most of these plants have can lead people to the wrong conclusion. I suppose that being wrong is better than being dead. Now for her, they are not actually a full-blooded Mothin. She is a 50-50 hybrid Mothin-Fae. Now, you may ask, didn't I just say that Mothin are Fae? Yeah, this is actually what we call a flaw of language. So, pretty much, modern Fae live in the same woods, or the dark woods, as the old Fae did. And because they did, and the forest hadn't gone through much changes, they pretty much look and act about the same. However, the Mothins are Fae that moved from the Dark Forest to an entirely new location. So pretty much, Mothins are a species of Fae, but they are not the Fae. Mothin, as mentioned before, are a silk moth, and the white plume moth looks nothing like a silk moth. It doesn't even look like most other moths. So I thought, why not just make one of her parents a modern Fae and the other a Mothin to explain why she looks so weird for a Mothin. Also, it works out lore-wise because these hybrids aren't uncommon, since the two species still kinda live nearby to one another, and they get along alright. I mean, the Fae believe that Mothins were Fae that disobeyed the great nature spirit and therefore were cursed to be magicless. But they aren't, like, trying to kill each other. We take what wins we can get, and one more win for you is we're up to our last Mothin. Funny enough, we are following up with one of the most common moths to moth. Trichopteryx polycomata, or the barred-toothed striped moth, are found in Europe near the east coast, as well as to the far ends of Russia and even to Japan. It was first recorded in 1775, and one thing that I learned from this moth is that there is a plant called ash. Look, I'm perfectly aware that Google AI Overview is near worthless. That's why I don't reference it or use it for info. However, I do occasionally skim read over it, and this time it said that these moths eat ash, which first really confused me. Deeply confused me. But yeah, this is an ash plant, and they don't eat ash, but they eat ash as in the plant. Now, a little pause here. I obviously had to really change up the proportions for the last one for lore. But now what I didn't say is I was having a problem with the last three because even though I'm not sticking to the base and I'm changing it up quite a bit, it is still so heavily close to the base, which was making them all too similar for my comfort. And after that last one, I was like, hey, I could do this, but less extreme for all of them. Kind of embarrassing that it took me to the last moth of this video, but hey, at least we got here. We learn and we grow. Now, this story was harder to come up with at first. I didn't know what I wanted him to do, but, not everyone needs to be an adventurer. He's a young man, a single father in a small Mothin town just outside of Mothdale. He works a few jobs, tailoring clothes, playing music for local events, and being a guide to the town and nearby city. His son has hypochondroplasia, a genetic disorder which results in his wings, arms, and legs not growing as much as someone without his condition. He saves up everything that he has to try to give his son the life he deserves. And his son dreams of one day becoming the member of the Mothdale Flyer Derby just like his mother, despite the fact that his wings prevent him from flying too well, and the fact that his aforementioned mother had left them long, long ago. This is a little sadder one, so I'll give you a little gift. You can name both this moth as well as his son. You can list the son as Mothin 5.5, and his dad is Mothin 5. So he's a bonus Mothin, and I'll try to get him drawn before I release the next part, so that you can see the happy family together. Well, this has been quite the journey, and now we have 5 whole Mothins to show for it. Again, I hope the second part is out soon. It will probably have to be an early April video due to my other video plans, but we'll see. But that's not all. It's time for some fan art shoutout. This was made by Sleepy Avy, a member of my Discord server, and she drew my persona Mercury. It feels a little odd seeing my persona drawn by someone else. Like, whenever I do art trades or anything where I have someone draw a character of mine, it's never my little freak self, but I'm like so unbelievably excited when I saw this, like, hello, that is me. And you drew me for like no reason besides the fact that you could. Like, I gotta go tell Mama that I'm a big boy YouTuber now. Anyway, I joke, but thank you so much, Sleepy Avy. It means a lot to me. If you would like your fan art featured, you could go to my Discord server and put them in this channel right here. I truly appreciate all the art I receive. It genuinely makes my day. Now, I am not a gatekeeper by any means, so if you would like to make your own Mothin, these loose templates that I used to help make this video possible are for free to use. I will put them in a YouTube post as well as you can find them on my other social medias and the Discord server so that you can use them to help make your own Mothin character if you would like to. Also, just for the record, to be clear, if you make a character using like my template or even without my template that is supposed to be like a creature of my fantasy world, that would be considered a fan OC, therefore in a way fan art, and I would be happy to feature that as well. Also, I would like to give a huge thank you to all the people who suggested moths in my Discord server, and for now, that is all for this video. I hope it at least brought something interesting to you, or that you learned something new. And if you already knew all this stuff, or you don't really care for it, I hope you at least thought the character stories were entertaining. With that said, have a great day or night, and stay safe out there, my little creatures and critters.